Fatalis. We've all been there. We die again and again and again. But hopefully that all changes today with this video. What's up guys, it's the Hunter Project here. Today I bring you a brand new video on Monster Hunter World. If you do enjoy, a like and subscribe would be appreciated. Right, let's get straight into the top 5 tips on fighting Fatalis. Right, number 5. Do not be scared to die as long as you fortify and eat for Moxie. So this will allow us to become way more lethal as we lose lives, so it just makes dying less of a lose situation and more of a win-lose, so you are gaining something from it even though you're losing a life. Just basically, if you're feeling extremely aggressive, you could load into the battle with the Safi set to deplete your health, so you're always going to have the 20% damage boost, but you are going to lose all your lives doing that unless you're doing the assignment version, so that's just all up for whether or not you feel like doing that. Of course it will have pros and cons, so the con obviously being you're not going to have any lives, but the pro being you potentially might kill it quicker, reducing your chance of a death happening, a risky one that's going to cost you the quest. So it's all down to you basically, because of course the longer you have the quest running, the more likely you are to lose a life, so if you kill it quicker it might just be more beneficial for you. Right, and the final part of this tip would be to, especially when you have Fortify running, even if it's the first level of it, be aware that the roaming blister will scale, and it does a ridiculous amount of damage when you have 2 lives that are gone, to the point where you can knock Fatalis down if you get all body shots. So when it's a crit shot, if you hit all your roaming blister shots on him, it will down him once, and usually this will be utilized at the start of the second phase. But right, let's get straight into the 4th one, which is do not force any actions. So this one is extremely just universal to Monster Hunter. You don't want to prioritize damage over your safety, especially if you're trying to kill the monster for the first time. Of course, speedrunners, they will risk it, but for any other player, you always want to plan your hits, and specifically for Fatalis, try and be around his back legs and his stomach. But personally, I'd only attack his stomach when it's weakened, so you're not putting yourself in a risky area without reaping all the rewards possible. So it is more of a high risk area, but it's worth hitting, especially if he's got a weakened belly. But yeah, a common example of when you should not be forcing your hits is when he does his wide area of attack, just as you can see in the background. Especially if you get to his head late into the attack, you do not want to try force the hits, as he does leave behind a little pool of lava that explodes, so you definitely don't want to be under his head towards the end of this attack, so you do want to try and learn the timing of this. And finally, one other thing about that attack is just try and make sure you're positioned well, so either if you're not behind his head, try and run to the sides, or just try position behind a rock as quickly as possible. But yeah, moving on to the 3rd tip is, depending on how much damage you do not need to start with cannons on every first phase. So this has become quite common for people who are struggling with Fatalis. They recommend using the cannon straight away, and of course I do recommend this if you feel like you're not doing enough damage each time. But if you are confident with the amount of damage you are doing, you may want to skip them, especially with the amount of damage I do with Savage Axe. I waste more time setting up firing the cannons as well as doing less damage in the same time frame, but you do want to make use of the ballista, as it could be the extra little damage for a break, because you do remember that all the siege weapons do have increased damage on parts, so keep that in mind. And just a little fun little anecdote, my first kill was due to a random ballista shot towards the end, where I shot him with just a random ballista when he landed from his final nuke, and it broke his horn, knocking him down, and then I got the last few hits in the last 30 seconds to get the kill, and it was quite an awesome moment. But yeah, Just make sure that you use the siege weapons effectively, but don't use them too much to the point you're just wasting time, especially if you're already doing a lot of damage. Right, moving on to the second tip, or our second to last I should say, because we're working from top down, is to use Divine Blessing and Tool Maintenance. If you are struggling with Fatalis' damage output, then Divine Blessing is a must. On my first kill I ran Divine Blessing and Tool Maintenance. Both were fully maxed out, and yeah, this just allows you to be much more clumsy and makes Fatalis way less threatening, to the point where a direct firebolt only did 20% damage compared to like him just doing 80% or straight one-shotting you. And then the Tool Maintenance will just allow you to swap between Rocksteady and Temporal way more frequently, and I'd recommend using the Fireproof as well as Evasion if you are good at timing your dodges. This will just allow you to maximize your DPS, because of course when you dodge with the evasion on, you're going to get a damage increase for a short time. But yeah, I'd highly recommend specifically to use Fireproof when either your Temporal or Rocksteady run out. And finally guys, tip number 1. So that is to not care about dying. So basically for every death, just make sure you've tried your best to analyze its moveset and attack pattern, so you're able to dodge and predict what move he's going to do next. So this will come with a lot of trial and error, so just making sure if you die to say the zigzag attack and you know it's because you rolled left, every time you notice he's about to do it, roll right or towards him. So basically when I started using Charge Blade to speedrun him, which I'm still working on, I was focused to learn all his moves as the axe mode is slow. So I was having to wait for my attacks, wait after my attacks to evade his. So it's just making sure you have the patience to be able to fight him slowly, especially if you're using a heavier weapon. If you're using dual swords for example, of course you have the more lenience to get a lot of hits in and then evade his attack straight after, just because of how fast it is. But if you are using a slow moving weapon like the greatsword or the switch axe or the Charged Blade, just making sure that you're, after an attack, be ready for his, or if not, just quickly get out of the way before he's even about to attack. But yeah, so a little extra tip onto that would be your positioning, just making sure you're always aware of where you're positioned and what moves he can do to get you in that position. Right, so his 3 main attacks, other than the nukes, being his downward fire pit, which is maintained for a few minutes, which you should run to the tail or away from his front vicinity. And then we've got his zigzag fire breath, which he'll start on his left and then breathe fire left and right in a forward motion. And then finally his wide area of attack move, which if you were caught in the middle of it, I'm sorry, but you either Farcaster or you accept your fate. So 2 ways to dodge that one would be to either get lucky and get out on the side of the attack, or out of the back using the emergency dive. So it's just keeping in mind, the closer towards his head, the smaller the angle of the fire, and then further out, the wider it is. So it's easier if you're already close to his head. Don't panic, just go straight towards the right side at around a 45-degree angle, so you'll easily get out of it. So as long as you're moving forward and to the right or left, depending on which side you're on, you'll most likely get out of his fire breath. Right, so this also goes for his nukes. For his first nuke, you're gonna have to hide under the shelter. Second nuke, hide behind the gate. For his 3rd, 4th and 5th nukes, this once again applies the same. So the closer to him, the smaller the angle of the fire is going to be, so you do want to try position yourself closer to him. And if you do notice he's about to fly, you will, especially if you're on the other side of where he's going to fly to, you will have to iframe it. But if you don't, then just run and hope. But for 70% of the chance, if you're on the other side of where he starts his nuke and you get blown away by the wind, you will die. So that's just something to keep in mind. But you can iframe these, so if you do, just try learn these to try prevent that from happening. But if not, hopefully you haven't lost any lives, or you still have a few lives left. so you're able to just come back from it if you do die. But yeah, so that is the end of the top 5 tips, guys, with the extra one in the middle. I do have a few extra ones lined up just for little tidbits of information which didn't think deserved a little big point to them. It's just for charge blade users specifically, is to charge your blades by these back legs, so either position to the side of them or straight behind them. And if you do position behind them, it will proc the tail swipe, especially in first phase it will. So it's just being careful of this, and if he does tail swipe, that's just an extra few hits in for yourself. So that's just a little tip number 1. Extra tip number 2 is to weaken his head when he starts to fly initially. So this is where he'll start doing quite a few fire attacks and then end it with a dive, which will be to allow him to land back on the floor. So it's just as soon as he gets into the air, clutch onto his leg, and then just make your way to his head and weaken it, just so you don't have to weaken it while he's on the floor, which is way more dangerous. And then the next tip would be just to make sure that you carry max potions and its ingredients. You want to try to refrain from using mega potions as much as possible, especially when in the middle of fighting him. Of course, if it's under the little shield door, or if it's behind the gate, then feel free to. But if you're in the middle of fighting him, just like in the background, you want to use max potions, just so you're not wasting time healing up, because he could hit you with a move while you're still replenishing your health. And then finally, this goes hand in hand with the max potions, is to just make sure to Farcaster when necessary, just to replenish everything that you're using. So especially smoke bombs and max potions, its ingredients, and even ancient potions if you have the resources. Right guys, that is the end of the video. If you did enjoy, a like and subscribe would be extremely appreciated, and I hope you did learn something new that leads to you mastering and killing Fatalis for the first or second time, because I assume that's why you're still watching these kinds of videos. If you do want a detailed guide on using the charge blade on all his phases, be sure to comment down below, and yeah, let's try to aim for 10 likes, guys. I would appreciate it a lot. I am trying to aim for 1,000 subs by the end of 2020, so it would mean a lot if you guys would like and subscribe. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one, guys. Bye.